What's the first Tuesday of the month here in Texas?
Auction.
Auction. So 2 or 3 people kind of had that off the top of their heads. First Tuesday of the month, the banks nationwide call it Super Tuesday because it is a lot of houses that are being listed for and going to foreclosure. So we just experienced that this month. Bill, are you looking for somebody? Or? Oh, Jim, he was in and out of here. Yeah. So first Tuesday of the month, that is our big auction day here in Texas for both bank auctions as well as for tax foreclosure auctions. People gather at the courthouse here in Austin, Travis County in the courthouse, in Georgetown for the Williamson County auctions. And usually there's a big group of people who are there. Was anybody here there this morning? Anybody there this morning? Okay. Okay, just curious. So this presentation talks a little bit about what you would do if you were there. So even though you weren't there this morning, if you decide to go there at some point in the future, and it's always good to go. It's another opportunity to network with other investors. What do you know about the people who are going to auction? What do they typically have? Money. So Phil, you guys heard Phil talk about like the 12 different strategies that we use as real estate investors, yes? Yes? So one strategy that he kind of always jokes about is this one. He's like, strategy number 13, go to the auction with a gun and hold up the auction, because what does everybody have? Money, right? So it's some combination of cashier's checks and cash, right? And typically we tell people to go with that combination because when you go to 7-Eleven and you buy a pack of gum and it's $2.19 and you hand them a $5, what do? They make change for you, right? When you go to the auction and you have a $100,000 cashier check and your property was $92,500, what do? They'll make change, right? So we tell you guys, bring money both from the standpoint of cashier's check and also bring enough to make your own damn change, because they're not going to do that for you, and that's the expectation. So just want to make sure that's set. But yeah, strategy number 13, if you guys want to just write down that, hold up the auction. She's like, oh, I better get that. It's good enough. Okay, so we're going to talk tonight about what we call digging for pre-foreclosure gold. So this is one of the strategies that we use. So what's a foreclosure? A lien holder, a bank, for example, or even a private money lender or a hard money lender has a house and the owner is not making payments on that house anymore. When we issue a loan, for example, there is both a note and a deed of trust, and the note and deed of trust combination allow us to take a property to foreclosure based on not the due on sale clause, but based on just the ability to accelerate based on default, non-payment of that loan. So we will accelerate the note, call it due. We have to file several notices with the county, and we have to send several notices to the owner to make sure that they are properly noticed and the world is properly noticed. The proper notice to the seller goes directly to the seller. The proper notice to the world, if you will, everyone else, is the stuff that gets filed at the county. So they will file their intent to foreclose. And just to let you guys know, and I've seen so many brand new investors make this really terrible mistake. Oh my gosh, and it's really depressing to kind of watch it happen. And I kind of wonder what the other investors are thinking, like as they watch a brand new investor who literally still has the green behind their ears, bidding on a second lien. What happens when you buy a second lien at auction? What does that mean? What have you just done?
You wasted your money.
You may have wasted your money, yeah? Well, what does that mean? Guys, we have a ton of seats up here. We can unload all those seats in the back. You guys can just like join us up here. So a ton of seats all over here. Please have a seat, have a seat. So what else does that mean? What strategy did Phil talk about earlier tonight? Buying subject to the existing loan. So when you buy a second lien at auction, you will have effectively bought subject to the first lien. right? So you can do that, and I have seen investors do it. Most of the time when they're doing it, they are making some type of a huge error in that process. So do be aware of that. Just because you're buying something at auction doesn't mean all liens get wiped out. It only means that junior liens or liens that were filed after that filing of that lien get wiped out. But when I say junior liens, am I talking about property taxes? No, because the county's always going to get their money, period. So those are not wiped out. If there are property tax liens, those don't get wiped out. And I will say, guys, just so you're aware, the later in the year that you buy a property at auction, the more expensive that purchase price is to you. Why is that? Because even though you haven't, let's say you buy at the next auction, okay, the November auction, even though you just got title to it in November, and even though you only owned it for November and December, what are you paying for? You're paying for the property taxes from January 1st on through the rest of the year. So literally every month that property gets more expensive to you. Do you guys follow that? And of course, if there are any property tax liens that are filed, you will be required to pay for that too. You don't necessarily have to pay for that at a bank foreclosure sale, but you do have to at the time of purchase, but you will have to eventually pay for that, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? So please all of you guys, please be careful about understanding what is a senior lien, what is a junior lien, and what types of liens, whether they come after the lien that's foreclosing, meaning they were filed at the courthouse or they were signed by the owner at the court and filed at the courthouse after the second lien, as an example, that sometimes those still survive depending on what kind of a lien it is. Most new investors don't do that homework and get really confused, and that's why I said I wonder what all the senior investors are looking around saying what the hell is that guy doing? Does he even know? You'll hear the senior investors kind of talk to each other what are you thinking? Sometimes they'll share some of that tribal knowledge, that house has a foundation problem that's a $60,000 foundation. I was in that house, right? So this is a good place to talk, network, find other investors, source of capital as well. Let's see. Foreclosure can wipe out lease agreements, and I say but some states are more lenient. What does that mean? If a bank forecloses and the bank takes that property back, the bank can decide whether or not they want to kick out the tenant. It's a little uncomfortable to kick out a tenant who's been paying the owner on time each and every month, but the owner has just been pocketing the money and not paying the bank. I have seen some banks continue to kind of kick that can down the road until the lease is done. They do not have to. So a lease survives a sale. So if I sell, not in foreclosure, if I sell my house that I have rented to Aquila, is that right? If I send it to Javier, then Javier, you just inherited my lease with Aquila. I don't care if I just signed it yesterday. If a property is sold at foreclosure, that lease does not survive that foreclosure sale, if you will. But again, a lot of people will honor it maybe for another month or so until Aquila finds a new home, especially if Aquila's been making the payments on time. Texas is if you do not pay, you do not stay state, okay? Although, oh my gosh, I was talking to someone recently who was $78,000 behind on their mortgage. It was on the auction list today. And you know what, when I was talking about, hey, we got to get this property sold, he's like, well, I was really kind of hoping I could stay in the house. Under what planet, and using what math do you really think that is a possibility? And there are some things you can do. What's one of the things you can do to stay in the house even if you're $78,000 behind? Win the lottery. Right? What's number 2?
Get somebody else to pay it.
Somebody else to pay it. Loan modification, right? Usually that far along the bank's not super like, what can I do to help you today, right? Yeah, the customer service arm is closed, right, for that person. But that's something that they were trying to do, but they were off on another planet, unfortunately. Texas, you don't pay, you don't stay. Non-judicial foreclosure state, what does that mean? You do not have to, in most cases, like 98% of the loans that originated in Texas are note and deed of trust loans, which means they don't have to take you to court. They can just follow the process and those loan documents to be able to foreclose on you. Now, they do have to file all of those notices to make sure that you know that, yes, you are getting foreclosed on. But after that, it's a pretty straight run to the foreclosure. Now, this guy, specifically the one I told you about that was $78,000 behind, he had done some bankruptcies, he had done some loan mods. There are many tactics that you can do. Usually they don't run out for 4 years, but some people are a little bit more sophisticated when it comes to working the system than others, and you will meet those people. And I will say, the people that you meet that are going to foreclosure because they're $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 behind, usually okay. But the people that you meet that are going to foreclosure because they're $80,000 behind, they usually have some really interesting tricks up their sleeve, and if you are not experienced, they're going to try to use you to kind of help manipulate the system for them. So just be aware of that. Just be aware of that, just saying. After 15 years of investing, I've run into a couple of very interesting things. I'll tell you, we had one gentleman who was the same thing. He was actually over $100,000 behind. And he had told Phil on the phone with him, he's like, yeah, I figured out how to, be 5 years behind. And Phil's like, well, I don't even understand, why doesn't the bank foreclose on you? And he said, well, what I do is I find someone who is about to file for bankruptcy, and I deed them a 1% interest in my property. Sneaky, yes? You guys follow that? So when they file bankruptcy, well, their house is covered, so they get bankruptcy protection for at least another 4 months. And if your pager's going off, that means we're going to get you signed up for membership. So after this, he's telling them how he's got figured out how to work the system. You know what his next question to Phil was? He asked Phil, he said to Phil, well, look, I'd really like to get a new loan on this property. Would you be interested in lending me? That's have you guys seen, we see these movies all the time, right? Like 007, like James Bond, where it's okay, I've got you tied up loosely, right? And now I'm going to tell you how I'm going to destroy you and the world and kill all these people. And then you untie yourself, that's what it felt. It is literally there was this. Is this a movie that we're am I starring? But it was really weird. So again, watch out for those types of people because usually they have things up their sleeve that involve maybe not so much good stuff to you. All right, let's see. Yeah, so the courts are not involved. And typically a foreclosure, I've seen them happen in as little as 3 to 4 months when a bank is very aggressive. I've seen them usually go out 8 months. That's not atypical. Very rarely is it going to go out beyond that, but occasionally there are some wild exceptions. Sometimes an owner can file a bankruptcy. A bankruptcy will stop the foreclosure for a period of time. If the seller does not make those payments as agreed to as part of the bankruptcy, then the bank's going to put that property right back on the foreclosure list, right? There's also something called a TRO, temporary restraining order. When women think about a restraining order, we think about we're restraining a guy from driving us and maybe scaring us crazy, right? When you use that same terminology for a bank, it is a restraining order against the bank from coming in to foreclose on us, okay? And you can use several different reasons for it. TRO is cheaper than a bankruptcy. A bankruptcy lasts longer than a TRO. A bankruptcy is a guaranteed stop. A TRO can kind of get a little iffy. The guy that I was telling you about who was going to foreclosure today, I said he had already recently declared bankruptcy, so he knew he was not allowed to declare bankruptcy until February. The bankruptcy had been discharged, which means he had started it, but accidentally on purpose not followed through with the bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy judges know, like, oh, it's you again, right? I'm not going to fall for a banana in the tailpipe again. Like, we're not going to do this anymore. So now he's coming for the TRO, and again, the judge is like, okay, I think I know who you. I think I recognize you at this point. So the judge asked for a surety bond on it. And the surety bond was equal to the amount of the mortgage payment, $1,500. And the guy would not pay the $1,500 to stay in the property another. Usually it's going to last at least one foreclosure cycle. But I'm like, you're going to have to move somewhere. Like, this thing cannot go on indefinitely, but it's this seller psychology that after they've had a couple of gambling wins, sometimes they continue down that route. So be aware of that. Okay, pre-foreclosure. Or foreclosures, buying property at auction. If you have a lot of capital, yes, you may buy a property at the auction. If you do not have a lot of capital, what you want to do is to buy them before they go to auction. Now, you may get informed about that property from that foreclosure list, or we call it the pre-foreclosure list. But I will say, and some people like to actually buy it at foreclosure. It's very interesting. Some people like to buy it at foreclosure because they don't want to have to talk to a seller, or they don't want to feel like they're taking. This is the craziest thing. I have one colleague who's like, "Well, I don't want to take advantage of the seller." Okay, so you have all this knowledge. You don't want to take advantage of the seller by buying it from them at a discount before it goes to auction. You're going to leave them with what we call the atomic bomb when you go to auction. That's what happens to your credit. But you're going to buy it from the bank. He's like, yeah, I'm going to screw over the bank. I'm not going to screw over the homeowner. It's like, no, like you're still taking. You have this specialized knowledge. Use it to help the homeowner too. Do we have to buy at the right price as real estate investors? Yes, but do we do good when we're buying from someone who's about to go to foreclosure? Yeah, we save their credit from having the atomic bomb on it, which is that foreclosure. So do be aware of that. Let's see here. The process. So first off, there's a notice of default. You've stopped making payments on your mortgage. We're about to foreclose on you. Notice of the trustee sale, which means the trustee, usually an attorney, is going to go to the auction, the courthouse, and auction this property, right? There's the auction, first Tuesday of the month. You got several different options what can happen at this point. You can stop it from actually getting there, so get it postponed, by starting a short sale, starting a loan mod, doing a bankruptcy, a TRO. Calling and begging sometimes works. Sometimes there's just an error on the bank's behalf, and that happens more times than you'd know. So if all of this happens, it actually goes back to notice of trustee sale, and then goes back to the auction process. It can be sold to the bank, which then it would be deeded to the new owner, which would be the bank. It can be sold to a third-party investor. So one of us, for example, in this room, the deed goes to that new investor. Or it can be canceled. So the note can be paid off, right? They won the lottery, right? Option number one, which we're all looking for. The note can be reinstated. It could be sold, purchased by, for example, one of us before the auction. Could have been a successful short sale that actually went through, or could have been a loan mod that both went through and stuck, okay? So those are some of the different decision trees that it might go down. But the truth is, buying foreclosures at the auction is not a beginner strategy. If you think it is, I can show you a lot of investors who have lost money because they thought, oh, this is easy, right? And that's sad to watch something like that happen. So occasionally there will be a lien that survives the sale. That happens more than you would know, both with IRS liens, tax liens, and first liens, obviously, especially if you're bidding on the wrong lien, a second lien. And I remember one guy, he thought he got the best deal in the world. He bought a $350,000 property for $50,000. I don't know why he didn't think, well, hey, why aren't all these other guys bidding on this one too? But he did not think, and then it was not until later that he found out that he bought the second and the first was still surviving. The seller declaring bankruptcy, again, doing a TRO prior to auction, negating your interest in the property. So it's not uncommon, guys, for you to buy a property at auction and because you're not like linked into a website called pacer.gov. So pacer.gov is a list of everybody who filed for bankruptcy. Now, there is a little bit of a time difference on it. So people, if you file for if you're on the foreclosure list and your auction is scheduled for 10 a.m. and the trustee gets around to auctioning your property at 10:45 a.m. because they auction all these other ones before you, if your bankruptcy is date time stamped before 10:45, that auction is rescinded. Now, the trustee's like, hey, I'm busy doing the auction. I don't know what these people are doing in the background. So the trustee might go ahead and auction the property. One of you might go ahead and buy the property. And if that's the case, then you have to go back through the process of calling the trustee and saying, hey, or the trustee might call you. Usually it's you calling the trustee because usually it's you getting to the house saying, hey, this is my house now, and the seller saying, I filed for bankruptcy at 10:02. The house didn't get auctioned until 10:45, right? Which is a real thing. And then you have to go back to the trustee, and the trustee says what? Oh, sure, let me write you a check. Trustee says, well, we need to examine this. We'll get right back to you in 6 weeks. Yes? For real, yes. So be aware that stuff like that does happen. Let's see. Oh my gosh, and you guys have probably gone through houses where the owner has gone through a foreclosure and the owner is, and I don't get this, but the owner is mad at the bank. It's the bank's fault on the foreclosure. So what do they sometimes do?
Trash the house.
Trash the house, yeah. So that's removing copper wire, removing light fixtures, removing plumbing fixtures, removing air conditioning systems, removing hot water heaters. Stuff like that does happen too. And it can happen like literally, you guys, if you're bidding on properties, like you need to have searched, or at least on a drive-by, to make sure that property is still intact before you auction, because you can't go back to the trustee and say, well, when I was there yesterday, that house was intact, and today it's burnt down, because the trustee's going to say, all sales are final. And by final, we mean we're closed, right? So do be aware of that as a possibility too. So the truth continues. Sometimes houses need significantly more repair than you can tell from the exterior. If you cannot get in that property, do we have a problem with foundations here in Austin? Yes, we do. And can sometimes you not see? I mean, sometimes you can see the stair step cracks on the outside, but foundation, getting a foundation bid fixed is really an art and a science. You'll get bids from one company that'll say, yeah, we can get this done for $15,000. You get a bid from another company that says, oh, this is a $35,000 job. They're doing the same thing, fixing the foundation, leveling the house. They just have different ways to do it, right? So do be aware that's one of the big things. Oh, gosh, and this drives people crazy. And this is what kind of pulls people out of doing this after a while. And I've got this number here wrong, but if you research 600 properties and pick the 30 you want to bid on, there's a 50% chance probably even higher than that the property is not going to make it to auction. Why? Because we're all going to try and get ahead of the auction, right? And the seller is going to try and get ahead of us. And sometimes the seller doesn't want to sell the house, so they may declare bankruptcy, do a TRO, start a loan mod, start a short sale, just to buy themselves more time, okay? So you may be spending, and I see a lot of new investors like spinning their wheels, spending hours and hours and hours researching a property that never ultimately makes it to the auction. And never is that more true than not so much with bank auctions, but really with tax auctions. Because bank auctions, it is uncommon for someone to go more than a year, for example, without paying. Property tax auctions, man, I've seen them go for 10 years. I've seen them go for 15 years and more, which doesn't make any sense, but happens all the time. Could you imagine if you were researching the same property for 10, you'd say, this investing thing is not working out the way that I have planned, right? So again, try to get them before they go to auction. Redemption periods. And redemption periods do not apply to Bank foreclosures, redemption periods only apply to property tax foreclosures and HOA liens or HOA foreclosures. So redemption periods, this is again, I'm kind of skipping back and forth, bank foreclosure versus property tax foreclosure. So the redemption period for a property tax foreclosure is 24 months on a homestead and 6 months on a non-homestead. But if you buy a non-homestead property, no one was living there, and then you fix it up and you put it on the market, and you get a buyer, and you take that contract to the title company, and you say, title company, I need you to provide a title insurance policy to my end buyer who's bringing in a loan from Wells Fargo. The title company may say, well, you've only owned this property for 6 months. And you say, oh yeah, it wasn't a homestead. And the title company is going to say, okay, yeah, we believe you. No, the title company is going to say, no, we don't feel comfortable about this. We want to wait till the 24-month period because they're issuing insurance. If they sell it to someone and they issue an insurance policy and something goes wrong, what does that mean for the title company? The title company gets the privilege of paying someone off, and they don't like to do that, so they like to be cautious. So if you're buying a property at property tax sale, just be aware that as a minimum during that redemption period, you can't do anything selling the property with title insurance, which is about how 99% of the properties that sell in the Austin area go for at least 6 months and maybe longer. So be prepared to kind of to hold that property as a rental property and not do much to it for that time period until title company is ready to issue insurance. Yeah, same with retail buyers. They might be cautious on those deals. Are you guys learning something? A few things? Is this like over here, or is this like, yeah, no, I know what we're talking about? Or somewhere in between this area? You guys are good. You guys are good in the back. Okay, good. O'Neill, I need you good too? Okay, good. All right, good. So let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of the auction process and buying a property at auction. First off, you'll want to buy what we call a pre-foreclosure list, or also named a foreclosure list, a list of properties that are going to auction. Usually you can get those lists, depending on the county, for about $40 to $50 every single month. You can Google to find some of those places that will provide those lists for you. You'll sort that list, you'll research the property. Usually you're going to sort it by the properties with the most equity, profit potential, right? To make sure you are going after the right ones. You'll complete your due diligence. You'll do a lien and tax research on this property. You'll get the ARV. You'll get contractor bids. The lien research is what I don't trust any of you guys to do. And I only say that because I barely trust myself doing it. I don't want to do it 15 years in. I want to pay a professional to do that for me. I want to pay a title company to do that title search for me. If you guys are doing this, bring in a pro, please. Otherwise, if you make a mistake, it could cost you a lot of money. Complete or drive by the property, peek in, take pictures, get your repair bid, peek in. That is a euphemism for what may, in some cases, be a break-in. I've climbed through many windows as a real estate investor, including, I remember I was at one property and I was probably 6 or 7 months pregnant. I'm getting in. I'm getting in. We are going inside. And there was a woman next to me. And let me just say, she was not pregnant, but she was not going in through the same window I was going in. But once I got in, I opened the front door for her. But guys, I mean, it's part of your due diligence. Sometimes you're going to have to color outside of the lines as a real estate investor. If it is uncomfortable for you, I understand it. Just call me. I've got great climbing skills. Set your maximum bid. Oh, this is something that a lot of new investors have trouble with. They either don't set their maximum bid or what they're going to bid for it at auction, or they go over it. Why do they go over it? The excitement. FOMO, fear of missing out, right? It's like, well, how could they bid more than me, right? Like, maybe they know something I don't know. No, write this down. Maybe they're stupid. I just like, does that happen? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I was just telling another group of investors who told me that recently they got, they said, this couple, they said, we got outbid by this other investor. We got outbid by $45,000. And we had like eyes on it by experienced investors who said, I don't know how they could pay that much. I just very simply said, if you are competing with stupid and you win, then you have lost, okay? Just because someone else is doing something idiotic doesn't mean that you have to, if all of your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? If all of your friends overpaid and lost money in real estate, would you do it too? And I'm hoping that answer is no. Yes? Okay, good. Okay, get your money together. This means cash. This means cashier's checks and some combination of cash. Some people say, well, can I get a loan? If you are very experienced, you might be able to get someone to loan you that money. But if you're just getting started out, no. Because what is a lender going to want when you buy a property? Title commitment. Insurance in place before the money is given. Is the property still even there? And I've got great stories about that too. I don't want to scare you guys, but again, you must be cautious. So go to the auction, wait for your trustee to start the bidding. What I love about Texas, rain, slime, rain, slime, sleet, snow, whatever the hurricane, whatever the weather, they're having an auction, right? They're having that sale. And you'll know, if you guys, you want to know how to look for, you want to know who the pros are at the auction, you want to know what the tips for the pros? In the winter, they're the ones who are really suited up and like have blankets with them at the Williamson County office. They'll bring chairs in the wintertime and a space heater. I'm not kidding you, for the auction. Are those folks pros? Yes. They will have a binder that's this thick with every single property on it, or they'll have it all on an iPad. Are those the pros? Yes, right? So those are some little tips to look for the pros there. And it's always funny when you see some like, people is like, are you camping? No, I'm bidding on a house. I want to win a house today, right? So something cool to look for and see. Let's see. Place your bid. Go back and forth with the trustees. So what is your bid? How much do you bid? What is your bid?
You have to run your numbers first.
You have to run your numbers first,
Yeah.
yes. And when a bank says the bidding is going to start at $206,000, what is your bid?
Your maximum allowable offer.
No. $1 over. You'll hear the professional investors bid $1 over. You want to give your max bid right there. I mean, yes, will you go that high? Yes, but do you want to like
No, but you
do
have to have
dance?
your maximum allowable offer.
There's no backing off of that. You know what I'm saying. Okay, give it to me. But yeah, no, I mean, I've seen a lot of investors like, get so excited, it's like, here's my maximum allowable offer. And the other investor's like, no, $1 over. Just want to see if that'll work. And sometimes it will work, right? You want to give yourself that opportunity wherever available. Yes, sir.
I've never been to one, but I know online, I thought that they do it in increments. The bidding in increments.
Starts with $1 over. Now, that's how you start. When you see someone else come in who's also bidding on that property, then it starts to usually go in hundreds, and then it usually starts to go in thousands. But always start with $1 over, because you want to kind of figure out your competition. Now, if you guys are $1 overing for the next $100,000, right? But they get with it very quickly and will start increasing their bids. Sometimes people at auction know each other, and it's like, okay, I want this one. Stop bidding. You can have the next one, which is really kind of cool because so you guys are familiar with like collusion and monopoly and like stock price manipulation and all that sort of stuff, right? Yes? Is there such a thing for real estate investing?
Oh, yeah.
No. Courthouse steps? No. which is actually kind of cool. All right, so let's say you win the bid, you pay for the property. When I say you pay for the property, usually you are handing money over within 1 minute to about 30 minutes. So don't think, oh, I'm just going to step out and go grab my money. No, if you are gone at the time and they'll usually break like every 30 minutes to collect money, especially the trustees who are auctioning several properties. If you are not there during the break, which sometimes investors are not, what do? They re-auction the property. It may go for lower than what it went the first time around. So don't think I've lost the bid until you see the money hit the trustee. Yeah? Wouldn't it be fun to just like, I'm just going to get in here and bid everybody out and then disappear. And then, I mean, that's a real strategy, right? And then hope that the people who went for that property are now gone, so the value goes lower. Like, there's some cool stuff you can do here. I'm just saying. So I'll tell you what's crazy is you might hand somebody $200,000, $500,000 in cashier's checks at the auction. What do you get?
Keys.
I'm guessing. You get like a carbon copy that you're not even really going to be able to read. You don't get let's just say you don't get the top copy, okay? And you're going to say, this is all I get? I just handed you 500, but like this is it? Yes, it feels a little uncomfortable. Like when you're at the title company, like I swear, I think the reason why they have you sign so many forms is just to wear your ass out, like for like thinking like, you know, okay, well, I got something, I got this big stack of forms, like versus this little dinky thing. There's some psychology there too, I swear. So you own it, so now what? Exit strategies. Many people want to fix and flip it. Some people want to buy and hold it as a rental property or hold it as a homestead. Some people want to immediately wholesale it out or wholetail it is one strategy. Some people will owner finance it to others. Guys, is there anyone in here who is not signed up for membership who is thinking, man, I want to sign up for a membership as soon as she stops talking? Anybody? Anybody? Does anybody have a buzzer that has not gone off yet?
Yeah, well, I didn't give the form.
You didn't give a form back. Okay. Well, if you guys are interested in membership, Graham's going to wave his hand like this. He will help you with membership right now. And by now, I mean now is good because he's closing up the membership table. He just told me. So if you guys are interested in joining us, please see Graham right now. Okay. So sales and negotiation. I already shared with you guys the dollar over strategy. Never come out with your maximum bid. You might end up overpaying. And after that, obviously, it'll go in hundreds, $500s, and $1,000 increments. To your point, when the bank ends their bidding with a wild number, oh, this is really kind of cool. Sometimes a bank will start their bidding like with some ridiculous, like, how did they come up with this? And literally, it'd be something like $109,354.55. What do you know at that point? It's like all of my cards are on the table. Right now, that's when you always start with the dollar over strategy. Because sometimes, this is always very interesting, sometimes the bank will start the bidding very low and try and get people bidding and going up. Sometimes the instructions that they'll give to the trustee is just give me this amount. Each bank is a little different. Each situation is a little different. You'll be surprised by some really interesting things when you're going to the auction. I think everybody knows the maximum allowable offer formula. Yes or yes? Maximum allowable offer formula is what we use 70% of the ARV, the after repair value, minus whatever repairs are needed on that property, okay? So if it's a $200,000 property that needs $30,000 in repairs, what's your maximum allowable? 180. Did you say that? You're fired. ARV 200,000 repairs are what did I say? 30? Yeah, what's your offer? 110. 210? Who said that? double fired. Oh my gosh. 200,000 times 70% is 140,000. Because it needs $30,000 in repairs, the maximum you would offer is $110,000. You even spent like time with me. Like I'm like that's all right. We can get the next one. Yes, sir.
Do you include closing costs and
that
and
30%? That 30% discount includes your closing costs on the buy, your holding costs throughout, and your closing costs when you go to resell it. Yeah, yes, sir. Usually, when you make this offer, if you are buying it for with your own cash, meaning not getting a hard money loan, usually you're making 15 to 18%, assuming that your ARV is right and assuming that your repairs are correct. And my favorite saying is, and you guys can tell me who said this, it's one of my favorite quotes. My renovation project came in on time and on budget.
Nobody.
Said no one. Ever. Right? So 15 to 18%, assuming that both of those things are true. Good luck on that. 10%, assuming that you do have a cost of capital, meaning you're borrowing from one of our hard money lenders that are part of the association. So in a $200,000 house, you might only make $20,000, for example, if you're paying a hard money loan. And again, that even assumes that you are nailing your ARV and nailing your repairs. So people say to me all the time, like, well, I only went $10,000 over. No, that's like half of your total profit. And if you screw something up, which new investors do all the time, that could be everything, right? That could be everything. So guys, we use this formula for a reason. Please honor it for your own pocketbook. I went through that. So the truth, guys, about buying at auction, it is exciting. It is very profitable if you know what you are doing. It's not necessarily a great getting started strategy unless you have great partners, unless you have someone else who can put eyes on the property for you. And eyes on the property, not just like physical, but also doing all the due diligence. The whole truth is there is a lot of risk when you buy a property at auction, not understanding the liens, not understanding what survives and what does not survive. You can make a living buying at auction, and I know several investors who do. You do have to be excellent at due diligence. You've got to have a great team in place to do the remodel, have a great realtor to help you with CMAs and someone to resell your properties. And you do have to come to bid on at least 20 to 30 properties and hope to come away with just one of those properties. Because again, we went through the process and all the different ways where it could either make it to auction or not, right? And there's more odds against it not going to auction than there are actually getting there. For us, so I said I know a lot of investors who make a lot of money buying at auction. I didn't say that I'm one of those investors. Why is that? Why is that? Because I like to buy before it goes to auction. I like to buy before it goes to auction. So I'm one of those people who takes houses away from the auction. There are times when I bought at auction when something, just the timing didn't work out, but I know when I'm buying at auction, now I'm competing against a lot more people. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I recommend, even though this is a great strategy, recommend you try to get in there before it goes to auction. That can always happen, but when it does, you tend to make a little bit more money than when you buy at auction as well. Guys, any questions about the presentation before we wrap it up tonight?